So I'm dreaming of this place. It's Leopold's Book Bar Cafe. It's the dreamiest bookstore, cafe, and cocktail bar combo you'll ever find. And it's right here at 1301 Regent Street. They've got the latest books from around the world, wines to sip or take home, and live jazz, plus open hours until midnight most nights of the week. You can grab a drink or dessert and just kick back at Leopold's. Today on CityCast Madison. We're celebrating librarians. Librarians' guiding principles are to promote free access to diverse information and challenge censorship. And right now, libraries across the country are facing calls to ban books. The American Library Association says book challenges are at a more than 20-year high. And Dane County is no outlier. All this week, Dane County public libraries are celebrating the freedom to read. It's Banned Books Con, and one of the country's most frequently banned authors will be speaking here in Madison. We sat down with Dane County Library Services Director Tracy Harold to hear what's happening. It's Tuesday, October 3rd. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Tracy, hello.
Hello. Hi. So nice to be here. So nice to talk to you.
Yes. So why celebrate banned books?
Well, wow. I think I would say first and foremost, book banning has been going on for as long as there have been ideas, right? So the idea of trying to suppress thoughts and ideas and the printed word, which I really believe is a really great way to experience the world in a way that you can kind of think about it and you can kind of roll it around in your own brain. You can bounce questions off of people you trust about the things that you're reading. It allows you to experience all aspects or many aspects of the world that you might not necessarily come in direct contact with. It just allows us to explore ideas. And banned books, I think in great part, are those books that explore ideas that have felt uncomfortable or outside of the norm, or at one time were thought to be objectionable. And in many cases now, we realize, oh, those are great contributions to the canon of literature. So I think it's just yet another way to explore ideas and on our own terms, right? That's what I really love about books in general and libraries, is that you get to explore ideas on your own terms.
But not if they're banned and you can't get to them.
That is correct. Right. If it's not on the shelf, you can't necessarily have access to it.
Yeah, and you mentioned there's this spreading wave of book banning. It's coming back. Are books really getting banned right here in Dane County?
So this is a really interesting question. There are questions about collections. It happened in Wanakee. The Wanakee Public Library was involved in a controversy over an LGBTQ pride display back in June of 2022. And that was discussed, and there was actually something that was shelved in a place that a patron brought to the youth services attention. It was moved to a more appropriate area, to the more appropriate area that it belonged in. Then things kind of went quiet until a blog post in February of 2023, I believe it was, by or from Dane Undivided. And that created quite a bit of stir around displays in the library and what should be in the library. There was never an actual request for reconsideration form, which is the general library process. If somebody would like to object to something in the library, there's a process. We've always had a process.
And so this Dane Undivided, they put out a blog post basically saying that they had objections to it. so it didn't go through the normal process.
It was Dane Undivided from what I can tell, because I have looked at the blog post. I actually did reach out to via their contact form to ask a little bit more about where were they housed? Where were they? It's a nameless, faceless blog.
And what did they find objectionable? What were they calling out?
What's shared in the blog post right off the bat are, and I think this is by design, parts of the book that are meant to be alarming or to grab your attention out of context, and then goes from, that teen book, teen content, to talking about that there are board books and children's books on display that represent LGBTQ communities, and that this is all in with the aim of grooming kids at the library. So that's what they actually call it in the in the blog post, is titled "Grooming Kids at the Library." And grooming is a it's very dangerous, and it's very specific, and it is not at all. It's very used incorrectly in this framework.
Yeah, so insinuating that the librarians put up this display to try and coax children into having a different sexual orientation or something of that nature, versus possibly having representation for people who are LGBTQ, or for people to explore, people who are different than them.
Exactly, which is what the library does. It represents the entire community and celebrates the entire community. And so, and if there's, everybody all the time walk into the library, patrons all the time will pass things that they don't feel they're interested in, and they go to the things that they are interested in. So that's really what the library is about. We're not about taking away people's choices in terms of what they can read and the information that they can avail themselves of.
Happy fall, squirrels! It is the season to find your little nook and get cozy with a tasty book. You know what I mean? How about 60 books? What? So, the Wisconsin Book Festival Fall Celebration is upon us. This month, the annual 4-day Fall Salute to Books and Reading will feature more than 60 authors. That's from local literary talent to best-selling writers, and in practically every genre. Fiction, nonfiction, poetry, sci-fi, suspense, and more. Pretty much anything you fancy. That's put on by the Madison Public Library and Madison Public Library Foundation, so you know it's fire. The Wisconsin Book Festival's fall celebration runs from October 19th to the 22nd. See who's speaking at wisconsinbookfestival.org. What happened in Waunakee then? Because there was this blog post, February 2023, and then it became much bigger than that and had consequences.
So the library board actually did put out a statement. The Waunakee Public Library did put out a statement just reiterating what a library is, the Library Bill of Rights, and the professionalism of the staff at Waunakee. Just kind of reasserted that what the library does and what it is for the community. There was a lot of discussion on social media arenas from my understanding. And this was also, it sounded like it was perhaps right around the time of elections. My understanding is that the kind of placement of this controversy was very pointed right around that time. And that it was perhaps trying to affect.
And it got embroiled,
yeah.
Right? This issue got into the election, and the ire that was sent towards the librarians, it got connected with the library. And so the books are becoming partisan in a certain sense.
Right. We think about Dane County as not being a place where that would necessarily happen. But there we are with Waunakee. We did see that happening.
And it's happened across the state.
Books have been challenged over time immemorial, and libraries have dealt with those challenges over the course of time.
Mm-hmm. And movements for anti-intellectualism, just generally, or any, scientist who brings forward a new idea.
Yes.
But I'm laughing probably because I'm just darn uncomfortable with it. But here we are, and I want to know what books are getting these questions, are getting these challenges. What types of books?
Books that are reflecting diversity, equity, and inclusion, books where people of color are central characters, LGBTQ reflective books that are showing people living their lives, being happy, being loved. So, and one of our guests for Banned Books Con, which I know we'll talk about, but one of our guests, Ellen Hopkins, she's been mainly a YA author who writes in verse. Her particular book, and I'm reading it right now, is really talking about addiction and the sexual behavior of this particular character and what she becomes embroiled in. The book is titled Crank. All of those topics seem to be very, very, very hot right now in terms of causing challenges or causing communities to start to be talking about these topics and being up in arms about them. And generally what we find is parts of information are taken out of context. Somebody will be paging through a book and come across a topic or a description or a narrative or a picture that they suddenly focus on rather than reading the book front cover to back cover, which is what we ask in our request for reconsideration forms. If somebody wants to challenge a book, we ask, have you read this book or seen this film or listened to this music in its entirety? Because it can be very easy to find one thing objectionable or that hits you the wrong way and causes you to have this reaction of kind of revolt. But then when you take it in its full context, you realize, oh, okay, this is not gratuitous. This is very informational.
A lot of books are about human experiences and challenging, upsetting, concerning things happen to humans on a regular basis.
Exactly. Yes.
So what happens when a book is challenged?
I've had books challenged at the libraries that I've been a director at. There's typically a policy of how we collect materials. We also talk about the attempt to represent all areas of the community, all interests of the community, the varying interests of the community. And we usually state something along the lines of what sources we tend to use when selecting materials for that library. So we do a lot of reading reviews from professional journals. And these are reviews that are written by people who are reading and exposed to many, 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 many different books, right? This is an area that we're experts in. And even we as selection experts will turn to the experts who've read many, 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 many books on a particular topic to give it a good review, or this isn't such a great read. It's not great on its facts, or it's not great in its research, or in a fiction case, it's not a great narrative. We go to professional journals for those reviews. So that is all outlined in our selection policy or collection development policy. And then usually as part of that policy, there is a request for reconsideration. So somebody who might object to a particular item can fill that form out. Actually, they can go to staff first, and staff will direct them to complete this form. And it usually asks for the person's name and where they live, so that are they a part of the community, what they would like done with the material. Sometimes it's a matter of, I want it pulled completely from the collection, or sometimes it's, I would like this moved into this very specific collection. So it shouldn't be in YA, it should be in adult. It shouldn't be in children's, it should be in YA.
And those all get considered and processed. And
yes, we really do try to listen to and hear the concern of a particular work. And that typically has worked very well.
That makes sense. I'm glad that you explained that. That's really thoughtful, and people probably don't think about it. Before letting you go, why do you think all of this is resurfacing right now?
We're facing this kind of polarization of ideas. And I think also, given the fact that we have the internet, this amazing internet and connection of ideas, but there's also a lot of there are ways to float ideas and create chatter that in some cases misrepresents what's really going on. And it also creates a way for people to be really vocal in a digital way that they wouldn't necessarily do in a personal way, face to face.
That's what we saw, it sounds like, in Wanakee with this blog.
Exactly. I don't know that we've seen the last of this. Certainly not per some of the ALA reporting of statistics and attempts to ban books in schools and libraries. But I think if we just keep true to our role as librarians and what libraries do in communities, that ideas and discussion isn't scary. It can really be productive.
Well, Tracy, we're so excited for the Banned Book Con. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bianca. I really appreciate the time to talk to you.
That's Tracy Harold, Dane County Library Service Director. For more on Banned Books Con, go to our show notes for a link. There's a ton of great talks planned, so definitely check that out. And here's what else Madison's talking about. More strikes and solidarity. UW-Madison employees are planning to walk out today in support of their colleagues at UW-Oshkosh. UW-Oshkosh is laying off several hundred employees and furloughing others. The school has an $18 million deficit that it says is due to rising costs, declining enrollment, and inadequate state funding. The UW-Madison demonstrators plan to start their protests at Union South, ending at Bascom Hill, and then head up to Oshkosh to join their fellow UW staff. And while we're on the topic of UW, it's homecoming this week, which means a lot of things to a lot of people, including possibly to you. If you're interested in any of the related events, on Wednesday, Bucky Badger is hosting a family-friendly scavenger hunt. Thursday, you can fill the hill, i.e. Bascom Hill, with pink flamingos. And on Friday, the big State and Gilman Street Parade. If you're interested in knowing more about the homecoming festivities this year, check out our show notes for a link. That's all for today, here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with someone you know who loves the literary truth-tellers Toni Morrison and James Baldwin. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then.